was a voice for those who daily struggle to survive.
Paul was a titan in the Texas legislature.
I can still hear Paul when I listen to those voices of division, those voices of hatred. He's in my mind. He's the rebuttal.
Paul Moreno was born in 1931 in Alamogordo, New Mexico, one of 12 children belonging to Avelina Ramirez and Reyes Moreno Sr. He spent his youth in El Paso's Segundo Barrio, where he attended Bowie High School. When he was just 14 years old, Paul began community organizing under the guidance of Father Gaynor and helped start the first Catholic youth organization in El Paso.
Time after Mass at the parish, Paul Moreno had come with his family to Mass, and I asked him, well, how's retirement? And he says, what retirement? He says, I will never stop being a troublemaker. I will always be a rebel.
At 17 years of age, Paul dropped out of Bowie High School and enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. After boot camp, Paul was assigned to the 1st Marine Division. He was 19 years old when the Korean War broke out in 1950. Paul served honorably in combat and during his service received several awards, most notably both the Bronze and Silver Stars.
Paul was a Marine. He knew how to fight. He served in the Korean War. And he took that fight with him, that passion with him, to the House floor. And to make sure that he fought for the things, for the injustices, to fight for our community. And he did so very strongly and very ably.
In the summer of 1952, tragedy struck the young Marine. Paul Moreno was a staff sergeant and was enjoying some fun in the water at Radium Springs with his brothers while he was on leave. He suffered an accident in the water that would forever change Paul's life and set him off on the course of public service. He dove headfirst in the shallow water and broke his neck when his head hit the lake bed. Paul would never walk again. Not only did that fateful accident take away his ability to walk, but he would only have minimal use of his arms for the rest of his life. His neck was broken, but not his spirit. During his rehab, Paul became committed to improving himself through education and enrolled in the Texas College of Mines, now the University of Texas at El Paso. In those days, there were no accommodations for students with special needs. But true to his nature, Paul was not deterred, and with the assistance of friends that would carry him up the stairs to class, he graduated and went on to attend law school at UT Austin. Following law school, he used his education to help the less fortunate and marginalized in our community. In 1966, the year the Texas Western Miners won the National Basketball Championship, the first time an all-black squad of players would win a national title, Paul Moreno was elected to the Texas House of Representatives. During his historic 40-year career, he earned a reputation as a ferocious fighter for the disadvantaged that ultimately earned him a designation by his colleagues as the conscience of the Texas House.
I knew Paul when I was a young law student, and he went up to Cambridge. I was at Harvard Law School at the time, and he was invited by the Chicano Law Students Association, and I saw this giant of a man that was committed to civil rights, and I was at a point in life where you can be inspired, and he met him for the first time, and he inspired me, and it changed my career and my perspective on what it was to be an American, and what it was to be a lawyer, and what it was to be dedicated to a cause. And I had the good fortune to know him for the rest of my life.
I was very proud of him in '70 when he came to understand the deep corruption that was existing at that time in the state government at the highest levels, and that he stood before the House of Representatives and introduced a bill to impeach the governor. There was a lot of people telling Paul not to do that it wasn't a prudent thing, but he is so honest and so straightforward that he could not stand or be a part of a government that he knew was corrupt.
If I could describe Paul, he was a great American patriot. And not the type of patriot that wraps himself around the American flag, or not the type of patriot that spews out slogans, but somebody that spent his life, dedicated his career to making sure that American ideals, the American dream was available to everybody, and not just people of privilege and not just people of influence, but everybody. And that is a true patriot.
And he always told me, I never sold out. This is one of my greatest accomplishments, is I never sold out. And you know that he was in a wheelchair for a lot of his life. And he gave that example that people with real disabilities are those who don't do anything significant for others.
You hear the stories about Paul and his advocacy for our gente here in El Paso, not only in El Paso, but throughout Texas. He was one of the co-founders of MELC, the Mexican American Legislative Caucus, which has really been a vehicle to fight for civil rights for minorities in our state. And MELC is the oldest Latino caucus and the largest Latino caucus to this day in the country. And so it was the vision of Paul and many other representatives to put together this caucus to advocate for the things that are important to our community.
The fact that he wasn't afraid to speak truth to power.
Paul's legacy is going to live forever.
For many of us, he's a great legend because he broke ground, he spoke truth to power.
He's an example of that genuineness on it, and that courage, and that's his lasting legacy.
I think the other legacy is how long Paul served. He served his constituents very well. People trusted him, and he was a man of the people. You would always see Paul in the barrios, and I think that's something that we should continue to do. Never leave our community, make sure that we continue to serve for the people, and make sure that you're one with the people.
He defended the poor. He changed the course of history for many of us here in Texas. He corrected injustices, that was his fight, and he laid the foundations for our lives to be better. And that's why he continues to be a great giant on whose shoulders we stand as we meet the new challenges before us. There is a scripture passage that says, "Blessed are those who thirst and hunger for justice, for they will be satisfied."
Viva Paul Moreno.
Viva Paul Moreno!
Viva Paul Moreno!
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the first recipient of the Paul C. Moreno Lifetime Achievement Award, Guillermo Memo Acosta.